The details are not available. They will be in a few minutes. The White House is now giving out a statement. The attack apparently was made on all naval and military activities on the principal island of Oahu. The president's brief statement was read to reporters by Stephen Early, the president's secretary. A Japanese attack upon Pearl Harbor naturally would mean war. Such an attack would naturally bring a counterattack, and hostilities of this kind would naturally mean that the president would ask Congress for a declaration of war.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy. The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan.
Sunday morning, and we were having breakfast. And on Sunday, we usually had waffles or pancakes, something like that. So we had waffles that day, and we were eating our breakfast, and we leisurely finished our breakfast, and we saw a neighbor lady outside in her yard looking up at the distance at the sky. So we were going to go to church, early Sunday school and church. So we went out and saw her and talked to her, and we saw black smoke in the distance. And we wondered what it was. My dad thought that the Army or Navy must be having maneuvers. We weren't worried. So we got in our car to go to church at Schofield Barracks, and we lived in the town of Wahiawa, Wahiawa, and that was not far from the post of Schofield Barracks. And Wheeler Field was an Army Air Corps field that was near Schofield Barracks. Well, we got partway to the post when my dad suddenly yelled, "Duck," as he yanked the wheel and swerved off the road. And my sister and I thought he was playing a game, so we jumped to the floor and giggled a little, and then we realized that something was wrong because machine gun bullets were hitting the road where our car had just been. And this Japanese fighter plane had dived down and was trying to machine gun.
When he went in 1940, he was stationed out of Zalatneo, Mexico. There's a naval base there. And he spent that first year just out in the Pacific in a boat, a lot of the time in the Fiji Islands. And it was peacetime then, so he said it was great. He said all they did was play ball. They'd stop on these islands and play ball, and they had that Navy had teams. And so that was not so bad until the war started a year later. It was after Pearl Harbor, and the fighting was pretty intense. And then his ship, they were taking fire, and it was always from the islands. Then this one time there was airplanes from Japan bombing them. They didn't have any forewarning that there was a armada of airplanes coming after them. They didn't. They usually would have had a warning, and they didn't. So they took all this fire from aircraft, and the guy who was in the gun on the opposite side of my ship from my dad, he got shot. So my dad ran over to that gun and took that guy's position, and then just like within a minute where my dad had been, that whole side of the ship just got blown to pieces, and everybody over there was killed. But he was like a minute from not making it through the war. But so his ship did sink, and there was, I think he said, about 13 guys that lived, and there was just bodies all over, and they were floating in the ocean. But finally a ship did come and pick them up, and brought them to I believe to Hawaii.
When we were on vacation with my sister and Russ, one evening I was sitting next to him and he was crying. And he said, my buddy's insides came out right next to me. And I was not prepared to know how to react to that statement from him, because I had no idea what he had gone through. And that's why it's important to get these stories out, because people didn't talk about it. And those veterans that did survive the war still suffered during their lifetimes with nightmares and nervous problems. But they made something out of themselves and had wonderful families, like I would say my brother-in-law did.